Hello guys and welcome to another video. This week I'm reading the Dreamer Trilogy, so you don't have to. Let's go! This is the sequel trilogy to the series The Raven Boys. This is the first book and I'm rereading both the first books in order to get ready for the release of the third and final one coming out this month. I have so many thoughts about this book. First of all, it's 470 pages long, just about. That is too long. Maybe 150 pages too long. I would say that this book could do without half of the point of views that it has. I obviously get Ronan, okay? Great point of view, probably my favorite. Declan, I can also understand. I get it. Maybe a little bit redundant since at least in this book, he adds nothing to the story, just more unfinished plot lines that we don't see concluded yet. I guess we'll see them in the second book, but for now, nothing important. Hennessy and Jordan are POVs that I really enjoy, so I would say that they're important to the book and that they add to the plot, to the spice, and to the lore. So I would keep them, but Farrah Lane and that Lillian lady, you know, the visionary who just explodes from time to time, they don't have to have POVs. We can just get their knowledge from an expo dump sometimes else that will take a page instead of 30 pages, 60 pages, or however long all the chapters combined took. I also have a feeling that Maggie Stiefvater is very much in love with her own writing. That's the vibes that I'm getting from this book. I feel like there is no plot, there is just writing and characters. I could literally go on about this book forever because it's so long and yet nothing happens and it almost made me feel nothing but rage. You know, it's still a solid book, but after reading The Raven Boys, I know not to expect plot from Maggie Stiefvater, but at least, you know, important characters or things that I care about, but we don't get to see the gang see. We see gang see through phone calls, we see Blue in a very indirect way through a phone call as well. Ronan doesn't even mention Noah or Henry ever existing. I just wish they were more present since they were so important in his life just a year ago. I wish we got more mentions to them. Also, this is the second time I'm gonna read both of these books and I did not remember 75% of that plot. Next up, I dreamt. What? Next up, I read Mr. Impossible by Maggie Stiefvater. So many thoughts on this book, so many. I have a whole ass reading vlog about reading this book when it came out. I read the book, I filmed, and I edited that video, and I probably watched the video after editing it, and I can promise you, I barely remembered 20% of what happened in this very book. I don't know if that says more about me or the book. You tell me. I think I used to hate the name Mr. Impossible, but now knowing that the third one is called Grey Warren, I like Mr. Impossible and I like Grey Warren. I just don't like Call Down the Hawk. I don't think it matches the other two. And I don't mind this cover that much anymore, but I still don't love it. The covers and the aesthetics as a whole of this trilogy, they just feel like a bit of a mess. As does this book in general. I think I liked it way more this time around, maybe because I just read the other one, so that always makes a series more enjoyable, but also because I'm preparing to read the next one, so I'm more invested in remembering and, you know, understanding what it is. Spoilers, when I tell you that I suspected Bride of being someone's dream and maybe being Ronan's dream, and when I got to it, I fully gasped and I was like, wait, I'd already read this. How am I still surprised by the biggest plot twist? Those are the things that you're supposed to remember, but clearly I had forgotten everything about it. I knew to be suspicious, but damn, that still got me. So props to Maggie for that, I guess, or to me. I still really enjoyed Hennessy. She's such an interesting, complex character, and Jordan as well. It's very nice to see how they're very, very similar, but still very, very different. Declan, I like his chapters. They're interesting, even though he is a bit bland. I like him when he's talking about Jordan or his siblings. It's a very interesting sibling dynamic that he has as their pseudo-parent figure. Matthew's chapters, I understand why they're there. Could have done without them. Ronan, of course, loved his chapters. Hate Bride always gave me cult leader vibes, so nothing that I like. I obviously wish we'd gotten more of Adam. Every time he's there, like, please let him talk, let him do something, and then they never do. And obviously Ronan is completely ignoring him because he is having the biggest, most intense quarter life crisis that there has ever been in the planet. This boy just wanted a mentor, and he went and did that without knowing he wanted a brother. Boom, got a brother. He wanted a friend that was also a dreamer, so he could have someone that understood him. So he went out and found them, but he still feels so lost and he doesn't know what he's capable of. One thing that I did not enjoy about this book, I admire, but I do not enjoy it, is how much art content there is. I know, okay, Maggie Stiefvater, I don't know if you studied art, but you're clearly an artist, okay? I'm following you on Twitter. I know you're an artist, and I read these freaking trilogy. I know you're artist, okay? You don't have to let me know in every single Jordan, Declan, and Hennessy chapter. We know, okay? We know you like art. We know these characters have artistic perspectives and they think like artists, okay? We get it. We get it. I get it. Can you let those two characters have a bit more character other than being artists? Please. Please. But other than that, it's an okay read. I think I have to go back and rewatch my reading vlog because I do not remember my thoughts. I just remember being disappointed by it. But having read this after reading Call Down the Hog just 2 days before I picked this up, I have to say that I like this more than last time. Let's go pick up the third book and final book in this freaking trilogy. The disrespect this book trilogy has towards Gangsy and Blue is incredible. Also, before I go, can we please, this is what I've been thinking about through this whole reread. I did not remember the storyline about Declan finding his birth mother and his other dreamt father. You know, like he's a copycat version of his father who's making a life for himself. He's a dream and he's living with the real life mother of Declan, okay? Not one peep in this book, not throughout the whole book. Never mentioned again. What the f? And I also think, okay, coming back to it, that this has too many points of views and they're a bit scattered because every time we're getting somewhere and we're getting character development, it's like, nope, now we're gonna have 50 pages of someone else and someone else's character development and we're gonna hit pause, and then after 50, 60 pages, we're gonna get back to it and you have to remember everything, and it feels like a roller coaster, not in a good way. Okay, I'll leave. I just finished reading Grey Warren by Maggie Stiefvater, and I literally just finished reading it like 20 minutes ago, so these aren't my final thoughts. These are my initial thoughts after just reading it. So overall, this series has definitely been something. Aesthetic-wise, I have to say that I don't like the names. I don't like the titles of the books, and I don't like the covers of the books. Individually, they are harmless, but put together, I feel like it has a bit of a scattered aesthetic. And I don't feel like the things that they chose to have on the covers really depict the book as a whole. And for some reason, my first two books of this series are like, they have a paper feel to them, okay? They're not shiny, they feel like paper. This one feels like plastic and it's so shiny, and it doesn't feel anything like the other two. So I don't like the feel of it. I rather have a paper feel to it. I'm pretty sure Maggie Stiefvater didn't have anything to do with that, but just so she knows. In terms of ranking, this, in my opinion, is definitely the superior book. I don't know if it's because I read it in 3 days. Maybe it's because it was a final book and I was like, yes, finally, it's ending. Or because this is the first time I've read it. It wasn't a reread like the other two, but it definitely feels like the best one out of the two. The first one really enraged me, so I think it might be Grey Warren, Mr. Impossible, and then Call Down the Hawk, but it's a tight race between the first two ones. This one is definitely the best. In terms of what makes it the best, I think it has the best pacing and the best chapters. At the beginning, I have to say, I hated Hennessy. I didn't hate her, but I was beginning to rethink why I liked her before because I could not remember. But then in the end, she pulled through and I was like, okay, you're done with your monologues. That was part of your character development. and now I like you again. Jordan was also very good. Jordan and Declan were kind of sidelined until the end, especially Jordan, so she didn't do much in the story, just create sweet medals, which I stand by my opinion that it should be a sweet meal since it feeds the dream, but I digress. Declan, I really liked his character arc all in this series. I definitely liked him better in book 2 and book 3 than book 1. I really liked how he grew up and how he learned to trust people, specifically his girlfriend and his brothers. And I like that in the end, he didn't have to be the one to save everyone. He could just rest for a while. I like that Matthew wasn't as involved in this book as in the other ones, specifically getting as many points of views, and he had a really funny dynamic with Bride. I did think he was a bit sidelined and used more as an afterthought at the end of the novel instead of like an actual plot line. It feels like Maggie forgot he was there and she was like, oh, he'll be here and then he'll do this and it'll all be off screen and it won't be mentioned until like in the last page, and then it will be wrapped up in one paragraph. I was fine with it, but I think it could have been done better. And then of course we have Farrah Blaine, whom I could have done without, but I guess she had an interesting dynamic with Hennessy. I did like seeing that. I guess they were kind of girlfriends at the end. It wasn't very clear. Ronan had a very interesting arc this book. I'm not gonna spoil it, but he was, let's say, a very passive character all throughout this book due to certain very complicated circumstances. And it was interesting to see that because Ronan is always doing something, or at least feeling something in a way that affects the world. And having him be so passive in his own story was definitely an interesting change in pace for his character. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but it was definitely interesting on Maggie's part. Ronan and Adam in this book, in the beginning, like the first 60 pages, God, that was painful. But then Adam was like, psych, and it was all good again. And I was so happy because I love the relationship and I love their dynamic. They're such good friends. They're so good for each other. So it's good to see them together and happy. And I've been talking a lot about the disrespect towards Gangsy and Blue in this book. It kind of gets fixed in the epilogue in a very Maggie Stiefvater way, very nonchalant. By the way, the episode starts with 4 years later. I gasped. But back to one of my main complaints in the first book and second book was Declan's storylines with his parents. I feel like they completely dropped it in the second book, but obviously it came back in this one and it was important, man. It was important. There have been so many revelations. I think my final comment on this series is that this changes everything we know about Ronan, everything about him and the Lynch brothers and the Lynch family, everything from the Raven Boys. So my question is, do you think Maggie Stiefvater had all of this planned and thought out while she was writing the Raven Boys series? I was thinking about it and I just reread it in August, so it's quite fresh in my mind. And I think she might have known where Ronan came from and all of his backstory and everything she was going to do. I think she did not know as much about what she was going to do with Declan, but she definitely knew, right? Let me know what you think, because I think she planted those seeds. Sometimes authors write sequels and then they're like, oh yeah, I meant to do this from the beginning. And you're like, well, I don't see the seeds. But for this, it makes perfect sense. So either it worked perfectly for her or the seeds were there from the beginning. All in all, I think this book is maybe 4 out of 5 stars and I'm looking forward to seeing more Ronan and Adam fan art. Final question, do you think we're getting a Blue and Gangsy spin-off book? And what they do in their year abroad, I think we deserve it. So as some final thoughts after having sat with this series for a week and a half, I have to say that this is a book series for people who love Ronan. I thought this was a book series for people who loved Ronan and Adam, but if you're just here for the ship, you're gonna be in so much pain throughout the whole trilogy. Not because they fight a lot and not because a lot of bad things happen to the ship, but because Adam is barely in it. So this is a book for people who love Ronan, for people who love Declan, for people who love the Pinch brothers. Not so much Matthew, because he is a plot point, but he is barely a character. And overall, this is a book for people who like art. If you are not, then it's fine. You are going to have Raven Boys content in just a couple of years, because it's been announced that in 2025, just 3 years from now, we are getting graphic novels for the Raven Cycle novels, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So I'll see you guys in 3 years to review those. Please leave a like if you like this video, comment down below if you have read any of these books, click subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and click that bell button to get notifications every time I post a new video. I post videos just like this every single Friday, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Bye! So here are the 3 books together, and I just noticed that they changed this. Besides the texture, they changed having a little symbol here that appears on the cover. How can a little change affect me so dang much?